Hello everyone, Richard here at Calvin Wazoo, where some of you must be thinking we're singing about someone else. And today I'm going to be talking about another album in the series, Frank Zappa, one album at a time, and we are up to this one here. Boulez conducts Zappa, The Perfect Stranger. Released from 1984, released by EMI and Angel Records in the United States, EMI in Europe. It was released in August 1984. It is an orchestral piece for the most part, although there are pieces on here that were performed with the Synclavier. As I said, the vinyl was released in 1984. The first CD release was in February of 1985. Then a Zappa Records CD was released in September of 2012. There were some other CD remasters released in between these times, which I'll mention here shortly. This began as a symphonic project, but then the pieces were created for a smaller ensemble. So in 1979, Zappa had the scores, for the Moenner's Vacation, the scores for Bob and Dacron, Sad Jane, Pedro's Dowry, and he sent these to Pierre Boulez. Okay, and even all of those pieces were eventually done on the London Symphony Orchestra releases, which were conducted by Kent Nagano. Also, Pedro's Dowry, which was among that list, was performed on Orchestral Favorites, and which I've done a review of Orchestral Favorites. I've also already done a review of the London Symphony Orchestra releases, the two of them. This one, of course, was from the recordings that took place, let's see, at UCLA, if I believe. This was also later remastered and re-released. Right, it was at UCLA at Royce Hall from performances in 1975. So Pedro's Dowry also appears on this. But Boulez didn't have an orchestra, so he commissioned Zappa to then write pieces for a smaller ensemble. And that led to for most of the orchestral pieces on this release. So the ensemble that was put together by Boulez was the Ensemble Intercontemporan. Now, the exception in terms of the new material would have been in the Naval Aviation in Art piece. That was performed in 1975 here at the UCLA concert. And also the music for Naval Aviation in Art really originated with the music from 200 Motels. So, I mean, a lot of Frank's music evolved. It was all part of the, in many respects, the conceptual continuity. But it was also, and also the project object concept that governed much of his work. But also different pieces evolved and became something else, but may have originated thematically with some earlier piece. And that was the case with Naval Aviation in Art, originating with some of the songs that appeared with the soundtrack for 200 Motels. Now, in general, Frank was unhappy with the Angel release because he didn't think it captured the true sound of the musicians when they were recording. And it is a digital recording, digital master. So that led to Frank in 1992 releasing the Barking Pumpkin CD reissue and remix, where he went back in and redid that so that he was more satisfied with the sound and the the overall performance. Then there was also the 2012 CD that I mentioned that was taken, from that remaster. The synclavier pieces obviously are ones that Zappa put together himself. The members of the Ensemble Intercontemporan are listed on the back. It's it's larger than let's say a chamber orchestra. I mean, but it's not as big as a full orchestra. And also the which we'll talk about when I get into the individual songs. There are little descriptions. They're all dances. And so there's a story that is going on with each piece, and that is, provided the description in the liner notes. So let's talk about the music. Overall, this is maybe the best release of Frank's orchestral material. I mean, certainly the Yellow Shark is, which also has a connection with some of the music, but certainly the Yellow Shark is an absolute brilliant recording, live recording of many different pieces, that were orchestrated. I will soon be doing one about the synclavier reproduction of the music of Francesco Zappa, who is unrelated to Frank Zappa. But, in terms of like the London Symphony Orchestra release, orchestral favorites, I'm not as familiar with Strictly Gentile, but this particular one, The Perfect Stranger, I find really quite enjoyable. And I would have loved to have gone to live performances of the pieces on this record. And it opens with the titular track, The Perfect Stranger. And, well, I often use the notes that are provided in this book, the big note, with many of my Frank Zappa album reviews. However, I'm not going to rely on it too much with this one because it really goes into the music construction and the types of scales and chords, and my knowledge of music in that aspect is really quite sophomoric. I mean, I kind of know what they're talking about, but I'm not going to presume I have any expertise in explaining the chord structures and things like that may be going on. I'm pretty much going to stay focused on does the music succeed in relaying the story that is provided, the description that is provided in the liner notes. And overall, I really do believe this music does. The thematic concepts for The Perfect Stranger do come from Chunga's Revenge. So on the liner notes, Frank wrote all these notes to describe the individual pieces, which he says the style is preposterously non-modern. All right, so The Perfect Stranger and is a story of a door-to-door salesman accompanied by his faithful gypsy mutant industrial vacuum cleaner, as per the interior illustration on the Chunga's Revenge cover. Cavorts licentiously with a slovenly housewife. We hear the doorbell, the housewife's eyebrows going up and down as she spies the nozzle through the ruffled curtain, the sound of the little bag of demonstration dirt being sprinkled on the rug, and assorted bombastic interjections representing the spiritual qualities of chrome, rubber, electricity, and household tidiness. The entire transaction is being viewed from a safe distance by Patricia, the dog in the high chair. It's really quite a delightful description of the song. Musically, the piece moves from a very sprightly melodies that are dominated by the strings that easily do conjure the notion of this being a dance. And then there are these more sinister tones that are supported by the brass section. And there's a part in there where the bassoon seems to, it really provides this nexus between the two, really connecting the two things going on. So perhaps the strings may be representing the housewife and her flitting about, and then the brass section, the salesman. The woodwind sections, to me, conjure a series of pronouncements by the salesman that blend with the strings and appear to represent the housewife's infatuation with this demonstration, and her infatuation coming from both a practical perspective and also a sensual perspective, that she finds it titillating, this whole vacuum cleaner salesman demo, etc., which the salesman is intentionally cultivating. I really like the piece. I think musically it is revealing a story that fits with Frank's description of it. Now, the next one is a very short piece, Naval Aviation in Art. Okay, so the description for this, Frank writes, it shows a sailor artist standing before his easel, squinting through a porthole for inspiration, while wiser men sleep in hammocks all around him. Well, this also was one that appeared on Orchestral Favorites, and the performance here is roughly twice as long as the performance on Orchestral Favorites, but it's still quite short, 2 minutes and 41 seconds, something like that. It begins very ominously, and it builds tension with the rising strings that are punctuated by these flourishes of clarinet that just, trills and triplets and just, going through this while there's this it's almost drone-like rising of tension with the low brass just kind of droning in the background. That description from the liner notes, to me, again, is really quite good, because you get this, you can conjure in your mind this notion of this artist sitting at perhaps a blank canvas on his easel, looking out a porthole on a ship, while he has all these other, people who are using the time wisely to just sleep. And then it kind of, the song kind of drifts off. Again, very much in how you would picture this sailor, this artist, his mind just drifting off because he is unable to capture the muse or whatever to create a piece. So those first two pieces on side one are orchestral pieces conducted by Boulez. Then we have The Girl in the Magnesium Dress, which is a synclavier piece. Now, there is an orchestrated version of The Girl in the Magnesium Dress that appears on The Yellow Shark. And eventually I will get to The Yellow Shark, for a review for that. As I'm thinking of it, I should mention that, while naval aviation in art does appear on this one, there are, the two releases of orchestral favorites. I would, if you have this one, I would still recommend that you get this one, the remastered one, because the sound difference is remarkable with the Bernie Grundman remastering and the just absolutely superb pressing. It is worth getting this. If you have neither of them and you enjoy, orchestral music, particularly Frank Zappa's orchestral music, then this is the one you want to buy. Don't bother, unless you want to have both, like, me, because I collect them, the remastered reissue is certainly the one to get. All right, so back to The Girl in the Magnesium Dress. So the description here with the notes, this is about a girl who hates men and kills them with her special dress. Its lightweight metal construction features a lethally pointed sort of micro-Wagnerian breastplate. When they die from dancing with her, she laughs at them and wipes it off. So again, just that description, especially if you are familiar with some of the, like Wagnerian work and the Ring Cycle, or what is Tristan and Isolde, that's Wagner, isn't it? It's really, really quite good. And then you have the music, the synclavier music is the floating notes that are just trilling all over the place. They're bubbly, but there's an element of danger with them. It's almost a magical sound of lithe dancing and the flashing of these distracting lights that the woman uses to bemuse her victims and then lull them into this unguarded repose that allows her to kind of swoop in and then kill them. It's really quite a nice piece. Then we go to side two, which opens with Outside Now Again. This is another synclavier piece, and this originated from Joe's Garage, the song Outside, or Outside Now. What happened is Steve Vai, who did a lot of transcriptions of performances and music for Frank, he transcribed the guitar solo from the Joe Garage's version of Outside Now, and then this was fed into the synclavier. So the piece, though, the description on the record cover here for this is very different from, the scenario that is portrayed in Joe's Garage. With this one, we get Outside Now Again shows the entire cast in an endless soup line. This pitiful sustenance dished out by people dressed to look like grant givers from the National Endowment for the Arts is perfectly suited to minimalist choreography. Yes, the whole mood of this particular composition fits the description here much better, in my opinion, than the storyline from Joe's Garage. It's really quite good, and the transcription of the guitar solo into the synclavier is really quite brilliant. I like. The next song is a very short piece, also on the synclavier, called Love Story. And the description just simply says, Love Story features an elderly Republican couple attempting sex while breakdancing. Okay. It's a very short piece. It's like 1 minute long. So there's not a whole lot really to say about it. But again, I do like that description of the piece that's provided on the album. And, you know, having that in mind while listening to it. I mean, having, you know, it makes, I don't know, it just seems to make sense that a Republican couple would go, well, maybe we can have sex while we try to break dance like the kids. I don't know. Then we got Dupree's Paradise, okay, which has shown up in other variations. This is an orchestral piece that begins with a very cinematic buoyancy. All right. Musically, to me, it seems at odds with the text description. All right. So the text description says, Dupree's Paradise is about a bar on Avalon Boulevard in Watts at 6 a.m. on a Sunday in 1964. During the early morning jam session, for about 7 minutes, the customers, winos, musicians, degenerates, and policemen do the things that set them apart from the rest of society. So to me, musically, it kind of seems at odds with this description, because what I get is a sort of a cinematic feel that, in my mind, conjures up 1940s urban set, most likely New York City even. Kind of that's almost like it's a musical. You know, I could picture like a dance set going, you know, with this. There's a piano section that's roughly in the middle that provides this stabilizing effect, is the best way I can describe it. It has some rhythmic consistency, expert playing amidst the somewhat erratic activity of the other patrons, you know, in the bar that are being musically rendered by the other instruments. So yeah, that middle part with the piano, which is just sort of very, the tempo is crisp. The melody that the piano is playing is a rising scale that, you know, I'm not going to say it's an arpeggio, because it is, you know, perhaps maybe a little more structured or something like that. This is where my sophomoric knowledge of music can get me in trouble, and how I'm, you know, describing these things. But that middle part with the piano, I really find excellent. The way it kind of bridges the other elements that are other musical elements that are going on. It is a delightful piece with a very big cinematic ending. I do really, really like Dupree's Paradise, which of course, you know, is performed, you know, many other times in concert with Frank and his band. Now the closer is Jonestown. This is a synclavier piece, and it is very ethereal and dark, as it should be. If you know anything about Jonestown, the description on the record cover, Jonestown concludes the album with a boring, ugly dance, evoking the essential nature of all religions. A person pretending to be a messenger from God bangs on the side of the communal beverage tub with the skull of a former child, silently mouthing the words, "Come and get it." Yeah, it's ethereal, it's dark, it's dirge-like. And then the banging sounds jar you. while the overall drone effect that is going on does suggest this blind obedience of cult members of any type. Um, and then, of course, if you know about Jonestown, which was this religious colony in Guyana, where everybody committed mass suicide. The industrial sounds that you are getting in here with the synclavier, I found very reminiscent of the distorted voices that you hear later in Frank Zappa Meets the Mothers of Prevention, which was released soon after in 1985. So I can see how what Zappa did with Jonestown, that technique he further developed and used it to distort, the testimony, some of the testimony sequences from Zappa Meets the Mothers of Prevention. So overall, there's a closing note here where Zappa says, all material contained herein is for entertainment purposes only and should not be confused with any other form of artistic expression. Just, very nice touch that Frank puts with his notes. Overall, musically, I really enjoy this particular release, The Perfect Stranger. Boulez conducts Zappa. The other orchestral works are good. I'm not saying, I'm not saying they're deficient other than maybe in the sound recording quality, but the actual pieces, to me here, not only are they more fully developed, but the actual performances of these pieces is really quite excellent as well. So yeah, this is and it's fairly inexpensive. I mean, I don't think you're going to have to shell out a lot of money for it, even though there were only, I think, 5,000 of the original pressing. I think there were only 5,000 pressed. And yeah, I got mine for less than $15. Looks like I paid $13 for it, and it's in VG. Sounds to me like VG Plus rather than VG. But yeah, it's really quite good. So that's what you have for this recording. As you can see, it's in the Angel label, digital recording. Frank Zappa. Boulez conducts Zappa, The Perfect Stranger. Leave a comment in the Down Under. I do enjoy getting those comments. You may find me also on Instagram as NewsDude76. That's NEWZDUDE76. I have a Facebook page called Kelvin Wazoo, where I not only post these videos, but I also post other music-related content, videos, articles, etc. Hey, hit the like button. It helps out with the distribution of my content so that other people can find it. And as always, remember to pray for the people inside your head, for they won't be there when you're dead.